Today, let us contemplate the nature of sin and the idea that the concept of sin is not exclusive to any particular faith or belief system. In Buddhism, we strive to understand the nature of our actions and their impact on ourselves and the world around us. So, what might be considered the greatest sin in the world from a Buddhist perspective? In Buddhism, the concept of sin is often viewed through the lens of karma, the law of cause and effect. The greatest sin, therefore, could be seen as the intentional action that causes harm and perpetuates suffering. This can take many forms, such as greed, hatred, ignorance, and their resulting actions. When we are driven by these negative forces, we create disharmony within ourselves and in the world. Greed, or the insatiable desire for more, is a great sin because it leads to grasping and attachment. We become so consumed with acquiring material possessions or satisfying our desires that we often neglect the needs of others. This can lead to exploitation, inequality, and the perpetuation of poverty and suffering. In the pursuit of wealth and possessions, we may harm others or the environment, creating negative karma that brings about further suffering. Hatred, or the aversion and anger towards others, is another great sin. When we hold on to anger and resentment, we create a cycle of negativity that not only harms those around us, but also affects our own well-being. We may act out in hurtful ways, causing pain and suffering to others. And in turn, we perpetuate the cycle of negativity and conflict. Ignorance, or the lack of understanding and wisdom, can also be seen as a great sin in Buddhism. When we act without mindfulness and awareness, we may unintentionally cause harm to others and ourselves. Ignorance of the interconnectedness of all beings and our responsibility to the world around us leads to actions that perpetuate suffering and perpetuate negative karma. From a Buddhist perspective, the greatest sin is the action that perpetuates the cycle of suffering and prevents us from realizing our true nature. It is the action that arises from greed, hatred, and ignorance, and leads to further harm and discord in the world. Therefore, the greatest sin is to act in a way that goes against the principles of compassion, wisdom, and interconnectedness. The Buddha taught that the path to liberation from suffering lies in cultivating wisdom, compassion, and ethical conduct. By understanding the nature of our actions and their consequences, by nurturing kindness and empathy, and by being mindful in all that we do, we can break free from the cycle of sin and suffering. We can create positive karma that brings about peace and harmony in our lives and the lives of others. So, what can we do to avoid the greatest sin in the world? We can start by cultivating mindfulness and awareness in our daily lives. By being mindful of our thoughts, words, and actions, we can become aware of the forces of greed, hatred, and ignorance that may drive us. We can then choose to act with kindness and compassion, to seek understanding and wisdom in all that we do. We can also practice generosity and selflessness, recognizing that true happiness comes from sharing and caring for others. By letting go of our attachment to material possessions and our self-centered desires, we can break free from the cycle of greed. Instead, we can use our resources to alleviate the suffering of others and to create positive change in the world. Furthermore, we can cultivate loving kindness and compassion towards all beings, recognizing that we are all interconnected and that the well-being of one is inseparable from the well-being of all. By letting go of hatred and aversion, we can build bridges of understanding and harmony, creating a more peaceful and just world for ourselves and future generations. Finally, we can seek wisdom and understanding through the practice of meditation and deep reflection. By cultivating clarity of mind and insight into the nature of reality, we can overcome ignorance and delusion. We can see the interconnectedness of all things and the impermanent nature of existence, leading us to act with greater mindfulness and wisdom. In conclusion, from a Buddhist perspective, the greatest sin in the world is the action that perpetuates suffering and goes against the principles of compassion, wisdom, and interconnectedness. By cultivating mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, we can break free from the cycle of sin and suffering and create positive change in the world. Let us all strive to be mindful of our actions, to act with kindness and compassion, and to seek wisdom and understanding in all that we do. By doing so, we can contribute to a world of peace, harmony, and well-being for all beings.